focused on becoming something real? Imagine a world where thrones are craved like oxygen. Everyone's either bowing or fighting to be bowed to. In that world, a man walks through the chaos with no crown, no need to rule. And yet all eyes follow him. That man isn't a king. He's something far more dangerous, a sigma. No allegiance to the hierarchy, no thirst for praise, just presence, purpose, and power. Sigmas don't chase status, they reject it. Because while kings play politics, killers sharpen their minds. While kings rule people, killers master themselves. And in a world obsessed with thrones, killers walk silently, but carry revolutions. So why do Sigma males walk away from glory, crowns, and status symbols? Why do they prefer solitude over superiority, self-mastery over influence, and authenticity over applause? Buckle up, Sigmas. This video isn't for the faint-hearted. This is a deep dive into why Sigmas are rewriting the rules of power. No kings, just killers. Number 1. Sigma males aren't playing the game, they've redefined it. Society gives you a rule book: go to school, get a job, climb the ladder, drive a flashy car, marry a model, and stack followers like trophies. It's a game of appearances, and most people play it without question. They roll the dice and chase the illusion. But Sigma males? They don't just refuse to play, they question the entire game. Not because they're antisocial or arrogant, but because they've decoded the system. Psychologists classify them as introverted alphas, men who lead without needing validation. They're wired for independence, not conformity. Sigmas understand that chasing external status is often a trap. Research shows that material success brings only short-term happiness. Sigmas prioritize internal growth, mastery of mind, purpose, and peace. To them, societal medals often come with invisible chains. So they don't care about being admired, they care about being free. And that mindset, that's what makes them truly powerful in a world addicted to approval. Number 2. Status is a cage, and Sigmas are lions. Chasing status is a never-ending game, and a tiring one at that. It's like running on a treadmill powered by everyone else's opinions. Just one slip, a drop in likes, a viral flop, or an unfollow from someone important, and suddenly your self-worth crashes like a tech stock after a scandal. But Sigma males aren't built that way. They don't need fancy titles to feel important. Being called boss or CEO doesn't fuel them. What fuels them is. Psychologically, Sigma males fall outside the traditional dominance hierarchy. According to studies on personality archetypes, they operate independently of social ranks, often relying on intrinsic motivation rather than external rewards. Their confidence comes from within, not applause. Think of a lion in a cage. It might stay quiet, but deep down, it remembers it was made to roam free and rule. That's Sigma energy, untamed, driven by inner fire, and impossible to contain within someone else's system. Number 3. The illusion of status is the death of authenticity. Most people aren't chasing greatness, they're chasing the of it. That's the trap of status. You buy flashy gadgets, wear designer clothes, and drive cars you can't afford, all to impress people whose opinions don't even matter. It's consumerism driven by insecurity. Psychologists call this conspicuous consumption, a phenomenon where people spend money on visible luxuries to signal wealth or success. But Sigma males see right through it. They don't care for appearances. They seek truth. And truth begins with authenticity. When you no longer crave applause, you free your hands to something real. When you stop putting on a show, you start a genuine life. Sigmas reject the status race because they know it's just that. A race with no finish line and no real reward. Power to them is quiet, steady, and real. And real power doesn't wear a mask. It stands firm, even in silence. Number 4. Kings need subjects. Sigmas don't. Kings thrive on being followed. Their identity often depends on sitting at the top of the social pyramid, commanding attention, respect, and loyalty. History is full of monarchs who ruled through hierarchy and status, relying on visible power to maintain their place. But Sigmas? They're cut from a different cloth. Sigmas don't care where they stand in the social order, top, middle, or completely outside of it. They walk alone, not out of rebellion, but because they don't need validation. Their strength isn't measured by the number of people behind them, but by the depth of their self-belief. Psychologically, Sigma males display high levels of self-determination, and introverted confidence. They trust their path, even if no one else walks it with them. They know who they are in silence and solitude. True confidence isn't about applause. It's about the version of you that shows up when no one else is looking. Number 5. Rejection of status, = rejection of weakness. Here's the dirtiest secret about status. Most of it is rooted in insecurity. Think about it. If someone is secure in who they are, why would they need a flood of likes or a flashy car to prove it? The obsession with status symbols often masks a lack of self-worth. People crave titles, validation, and recognition because they're trying to fill an inner void. Sigma males, however, don't play that game. They're not driven by the need to be seen. They're driven by the desire to grow. Psychology backs this up. Intrinsic motivation, the kind Sigmas thrive on, leads to more lasting success and well-being than external validation. While others scramble for approval, Sigmas rise in silence. They don't reject status out of weakness. They outgrow it. They're not trying to be seen as important. They already know they are. That's not just strength, that's real freedom. Number 6. The power of silent impact. Kings speak loudly. They command with volume, declare their presence, and expect the world to revolve around their words. Their power is often measured by how much noise they make. Sigmas, they do the exact opposite. A Sigma walks into a room and doesn't say a word, but something shifts. Why? Because human beings are biologically wired to sense energy before processing speech. According to studies in social psychology, non-verbal cues, like posture, eye contact, and presence, account for over 55% of communication. Sigma males master these silent tools. Their energy is calm, intentional, and razor-sharp. It doesn't demand attention, it draws it. True impact doesn't need a spotlight. Some of history's most influential figures moved in silence: Einstein, Bruce Lee, and Nikola Tesla. Their brilliance echoed louder than any shout. Number 7. Self-mastery, social hierarchy. Sigma males don't play social games or chase validation. They're not interested in who's alpha, beta, or the most admired in the room. Their mindset is rooted in self-mastery. While others compete for status in social hierarchies, Sigma males invest in growth, reading, learning, reflecting, and healing. Psychology calls this intrinsic motivation, driven by inner values, not external rewards. To a Sigma, real dominance starts with discipline, not dominance over others. They ask, why rule people if you can't rule your own thoughts? Their quiet power lies in self-control. Govern yourself first, and you won't need approval, applause, or a crown to walk like royalty. Number 8. Sigmas are revolutionaries, not politicians. Kings play politics. They smile in public and scheme in private. Status is their currency, and manipulation is the price. Sigma males are the opposite. They're not about politics, they're about principles. They don't fake alliances or compromise values just to climb some invisible ladder. They burn the ladder and build a jetpack. They are revolutionaries of the soul, not interested in controlling others, just in liberating themselves. Number 9. Legacy over labels. Sigma males aren't concerned with labels like weird, loner, or intimidating. Instead, they focus on something far more profound: impact and legacy. While many are preoccupied with gaining social approval or climbing the status ladder, Sigmas dedicate their energy to building strong character and transforming lives. Their influence doesn't stem from seeking recognition or attention. It comes from the subtle, lasting changes they inspire in those around them. Just as kings are remembered for the way they rule, Sigmas make their mark on the world by fostering growth and awakening in others. They have a unique ability to connect authentically, and it's through these deep, meaningful relationships that they create an enduring legacy. Their quiet, unassuming power is what allows them to leave a lasting impression, shaping lives without needing the spotlight. It's this authenticity that defines their true strength. Number 10. The Sigma Creed. No kings, just killers. In a world that thrives on status, crowns, titles, and thrones, Sigma males choose a path that defies the norm. Instead of seeking the loudest applause or the brightest spotlight, they embrace silence over noise. They prioritize principle over praise and mastery over mere medals. Their journey isn't about dominating others, but conquering themselves. Sigmas are not kings in a traditional sense, they are killers. Killers of illusions, dependency, and conformity. They reject societal pressures to fit in, and instead carve their own path. This form of self-mastery and inner leadership is incredibly powerful. Unlike leaders who seek control over others, Sigmas understand that true power comes from within. Their leadership is not about commanding others, but about inspiring them to lead themselves. It's this authenticity and independence that makes Sigma males some of the most influential and respected individuals in any sphere. Sigmas, if this hit you in the soul, it's because you already know. You were never meant to fit into their world. You were meant to build your own. So if you're tired of crowns that rust and applause that fades, join the movement. Hit that like button, subscribe, and walk with us, the ones who don't kneel, don't beg, and don't boast. We're not kings, we're killers, and we're just getting started. Having said this, she tested his patience one too many times, now the mask is off. What happens when a Sigma male, known for his calm and quiet demeanor, decides he's done playing nice? When a Sigma stops tolerating nonsense, the world finally sees the storm he's been hiding in silence. Sigmas, welcome. Today's topic is, when a Sigma male is done playing nice, here's what happens. Let's break this down. Sigma males are often misunderstood. They're not aloof because they lack emotion. They're observant, calculating, and intentional. According to psychologist John A. Johnson, introverted yet confident personalities tend to be more emotionally intelligent and self-regulated. This is the essence of the Sigma. A Sigma's tolerance isn't a sign of weakness, it's strategy. He picks his battles, avoids unnecessary drama, and lives by his own code. But once that code is violated too many times, whether through manipulation, disrespect, or betrayal, he shifts gears. And no, it's not some theatrical meltdown, it's subtle but surgical. The Sigma detaches, he stops engaging, he doesn't shout, he exits. This silence speaks louder than words. That's when people feel the weight of his absence. This transformation is often mistaken for coldness. In reality, it's power. When a Sigma stops being nice, he starts being real, asserting boundaries, saying no without guilt, and walking away without looking back. It's not revenge, it's recalibration. And the ripple effect, massive. People who took his patience for granted suddenly scramble for his attention. Toxic individuals are cut off. His energy gets redirected toward personal growth, financial goals, and mastery. This isn't about ego, it's about reclaiming peace. So if you've pushed a Sigma too far, don't expect a warning shot. Expect silence. And that silence is where his power lives. He doesn't need to prove himself to anyone, he simply disappears and levels up. Point 1, the silent build-up. When most people get disrespected, they bark, they raise their voices, clap back, argue, or storm out. It's an emotional reaction, a primal defense against perceived threat, but not Sigma males. When Sigmas get disrespected, they don't bark, they watch, and they wait. You see, the Sigma male operates on a different wavelength. He's not interested in winning petty arguments or putting on a performance to show dominance. Instead, his reaction is internal and strategic. He observes behavior, registers inconsistencies, and silently recalibrates how he engages with you. This isn't passivity, it's power under control. Psychologically speaking, Sigma males embody traits of high emotional intelligence and restraint. According to a 2009 study published in Individuals with High Emotional Self-Regulation tend to perform better in social conflict resolution, not by confrontation, but by managing their own impulses and gathering information. That's what Sigmas do. They don't need the last word. They want the response at the right time. In fact, their silence is often mistaken for weakness. People assume that if someone doesn't fight back immediately, they're submissive or afraid, but Sigmas don't care about your assumptions. What you're actually witnessing is their testing phase. They're analyzing. Was that disrespect a slip-up or a pattern? Was it rooted in insecurity or is it a sign of disloyalty? While others are busy yelling, the Sigma is taking notes. And then comes the twist. You never know what chapter of their story you're in until they shut the book. That's when the Sigma disappears, disconnects, or redefines the entire dynamic. No drama, no speeches, just silence and absence. And by the time you realize what happened, it's already too late. What makes this response so effective? It's the embodiment of the principle, don't tell them them. Sigmas withdraw their energy and access, two things people often don't realize they relied on until it's gone. This approach mirrors Stoic teachings from philosophers like Epictetus, who said it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. That's a Sigma's secret, calculated restraint. So the next time a Sigma gets disrespected and doesn't respond, don't assume it's because he didn't notice. He noticed. He just doesn't need to make noise, because while others are still shouting on the surface, the Sigma is preparing a move beneath it all, quietly, purposefully, and with full awareness of the cost and outcome. It's not weakness, it's war, played in silence. Point 2, the cold withdrawal. Here's the twist. When a Sigma male is done, there's no warning, no grand speech, no dramatic exit, just silence. And that's exactly what makes it so unnerving. Most people need closure. They argue, they beg, they fire off long texts, hoping to be heard. But a Sigma male, he vanishes without a ripple. One minute you're in his world, the next it's like you never existed. No drama, no confrontation, just gone. This isn't avoidance, it's resolution. Sigma males are emotionally detached once they reach their threshold. They don't erupt in rage or chase explanations. Why? Because long before you ever noticed something was wrong, they already did their internal audit. Quietly, logically, weeks or months in advance. By the time they walk away, the emotional processing is complete. What you're witnessing isn't a reaction, it's execution. That's why it stings. It's not messy, it's clean. It doesn't feed your ego with a final fight or give you the satisfaction of closure. And that's where Sigma males gain the upper hand. When someone storms off in anger, they still want you to chase. But when someone disappears in silence, that's when you know they've truly let go. Psychologists call this silent boundary enforcement. It's a self-protective behavior seen in highly independent and introverted individuals, those who prefer peace over chaos. Studies on conflict resolution confirm this. People who score high on self-reliance and introversion are more likely to walk away from conflict instead of engaging in it. It's not passive-aggressive, it's deliberate and final. Sigma males don't ghost out of fear, they disengage when something violates their values or peace. And the wild part, they don't seek closure from anyone but themselves. They don't need apologies or understanding to move on. They just decide. Their silence becomes a mirror, forcing others to confront what they've done, not because they're told to, but because the sudden absence is deafening. That's the Sigma power. When they close the book, they never reopen it. Point 3, the shift in energy. Sigmas don't chase, they replace. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. Sigma males are wired differently. When something or someone disrupts their peace, they don't explode. They evolve. The moment a Sigma stops playing nice, it's like a switch flips. Instead of wasting energy on explaining themselves, proving their worth, or begging for basic respect, they go silent. But don't mistake that silence for weakness. It's the sound of a storm forming beneath the surface. Sigmas redirect their energy inward. They level up. Whether it's hitting the gym, starting a new business, mastering a skill, or diving into solitude and reflection, they begin to rebuild from the inside out. Psychology calls this the ability to respond to stress, not with breakdown, but with growth. While others post online to prove a point, the Sigma disappears from the noise. Behind the scenes, he's grinding, quietly, consistently, strategically, and here's where the shift happens. Ex-friends start to feel the void. That calm, grounded presence they once took for granted, gone. And in its place, a gnawing realization they underestimated him. Toxic people feel exposed. Why? Because without the Sigma's energy to manipulate or guilt trip, their games no longer work. The spotlight turns inward, revealing their own dysfunction. Meanwhile, the Sigma doesn't feel anger, regret, or revenge. He feels focus. Neuroscience supports this too. When someone is highly self-regulated and goal-oriented, their prefrontal cortex activates more intensely, heightening discipline and decision-making. And here's the kicker. That quiet intensity, it becomes magnetic. Without chasing anyone, the Sigma starts attracting everything. People notice his absence, and more importantly, his glow-up. What once seemed like detachment is now clearly strength. What seemed passive is now power in motion. This is the Sigma blueprint. Don't chase, don't beg, just rise and replace. Because when a Sigma male is done playing nice, the world doesn't just miss him, it watches him ascend. Point 4, the domino effect on others. When a Sigma stops playing nice, it doesn't just cause ripples, it sends shockwaves through the emotional ecosystem of everyone who once underestimated him. You see, Sigma males operate differently. They're not driven by a need for approval, validation, or applause. They move quietly, observe intently, and act only when necessary. But when that calm presence goes cold, it flips the psychological script for those around them. People start overthinking, second-guessing every moment. Was I the problem? Why did he cut me off? Why isn't he reacting? This isn't just drama, it's cognitive dissonance. Psychologically, humans are wired to seek closure. When we don't get a reaction from someone we expect to engage, our brains go into overdrive trying to solve the silence. It's called the Zeigarnik effect, a phenomenon where people remember uncompleted or interrupted interactions more vividly than completed ones. So when a Sigma walks away without fanfare, it triggers emotional turmoil in those who never expected consequences. And the most unsettling part, the Sigma doesn't explain, he doesn't lash out, he doesn't beg, plead, or even clarify. His silence, it's a mirror, a confrontation not with him, but with oneself. His absence becomes louder than most people's presence. Why? Because we tend to undervalue quiet strength until it's gone. Most people are used to noise, attention-seeking, emotional outbursts. But when someone who used to listen, tolerate, and show restraint suddenly withdraws that energy, the emotional vacuum becomes undeniable. It's like removing the anchor from a ship. It starts drifting, lost and directionless. And here's the kicker. Sigmas don't withdraw to punish others. They do it to protect their peace. When respect is lost, tolerance has limits. When boundaries are crossed, the Sigma doesn't escalate. He evaporates. This is where power lies. Not in loud confrontation, but in silent transformation. So when a Sigma male stops playing nice, it's not revenge, it's a reset. He's reminding everyone that his calm demeanor was a choice, not a weakness. And now that the mask is off, the emotional economy collapses for those who thought they'd never have to pay for their actions. Because the Sigma's silence, it says everything they refused to hear when he was still speaking. Point 5, the birth of a new era. Here's the beautiful part. When a Sigma walks away from nonsense, he's not just making an exit, he's making an upgrade. See, most people think walking away is a sign of weakness or avoidance. But for the Sigma male, it's the complete opposite. It's a conscious decision to evolve. When he cuts ties with people, it's never impulsive or emotional. He's not ghosting for the sake of drama. He's pruning his environment. And what he's really cutting off, old patterns, toxic habits, and self-imposed limitations that no longer serve him. This isn't about being cold. It's about being clear. Clarity becomes the Sigma's new compass. It directs him away from distractions and toward direction. Science even backs this idea. Studies in behavioral psychology show that removing negative influences from your life can significantly boost focus, self-control, and emotional resilience. And that's exactly what the Sigma is after. He begins redirecting his energy toward higher pursuits, physical health, mental discipline, and long-term goals. He's not lounging in the silence, he's working in it. Gym sessions replace gossip. Early mornings replace late-night regrets, books replace arguments, and with every passing day he sharpens his tools, his intellect, his emotional control, his instincts. He upgrades his environment, mindset, and mission. This rebirth is quiet, but it's revolutionary. Think of it like a software update. The outer appearance doesn't change much, but inside he's faster, smarter, more resilient. He no longer bends for approval. He no longer negotiates his value. He no longer explains his peace. In psychology, this kind of transformation is known as a radical self-realignment, a powerful shift where an individual rewires their habits and identity to align with their highest potential. And that's what the Sigma male does when he walks away from nonsense. He evolves. He levels up. He becomes a man of intention, no longer shaped by the world around him, but by the clarity within him. Point 6, the unapologetic standards. When Sigmas stop playing nice, they don't make a loud announcement. They don't throw a tantrum. They simply, quietly, powerfully, and with intention. What does that mean? It means they start enforcing standards without saying a single word. No debates, no justifications, no emotional outbursts. They stop laughing at jokes they don't find funny. They stop showing up for people who don't show up for them. They stop responding to texts that feel forced, superficial, or manipulative. It's not anger, it's alignment. You see, Sigma males operate on an internal code. They're introspective, self-aware, and deeply observant. Psychology calls this trait high self-monitoring, the ability to read social cues without being controlled by them. When Sigmas decide they're done entertaining flaky people, fake intentions, or empty conversations, they don't burn bridges. They just stop building them. And this scares people. Why? Because most people are used to boundaries being loud, dramatic, and followed by explanations. But Sigma boundaries are different. They're invisible walls, firm, quiet, and absolute. No, hey, I don't like that. No, here's why I'm distancing myself. Just silence, detachment, distance. And that silence is deafening. Studies in behavioral psychology show that unpredictability and lack of closure can cause more anxiety than open conflict. When someone suddenly stops responding or pulls back without a word, it creates confusion. People don't know whether they've been judged, ignored, or outgrown. And for many, that uncertainty is unbearable. But for a Sigma, it's not about punishing others. It's about protecting peace. He aligns with his values, and if someone doesn't fit that frequency, he quietly exits. No drama, no guilt, just growth. This is why Sigmas are often misunderstood. Their silence is mistaken for arrogance. Their absence is mistaken for coldness, but in reality they're simply focused on truth, authenticity, and energy that feels right. So when a Sigma stops playing nice, don't look for signs of rage. Look for signs of resolve. He's not lashing out, he's leveling up. And the world, especially the people who used to take his kindness for granted, can feel the shift, even if they can't explain it. That's the Sigma way. Quiet, calculated, unapologetically real. Point 7, the untouchable mindset. When a Sigma male is done playing nice, something profound happens. He becomes untouchable. Not in the sense of arrogance or superiority, but in a way that reflects deep clarity and emotional mastery. This transformation is rooted in psychology, stoicism, and lived experience. Let's break it down. First, understand that Sigma males are lone wolves, independent thinkers who don't crave social approval, but even they can be pushed too far. When that threshold is crossed, a mental switch flips. The Sigma detaches, not out of bitterness, but out of necessity. He's done explaining himself, done tolerating manipulation, done entertaining emotional chaos. Manipulation tactics, whether it's gaslighting, guilt-tripping, or passive aggressiveness, lose their power over him. Why? Because he no longer reacts. Reaction is fuel for manipulation, and he's pulled the plug. This is supported by the concept of emotional detachment in psychology, a skill often taught in therapy to help individuals maintain boundaries and reduce emotional burnout. The Sigma embodies this skill naturally. Guilt trips? Denied. He doesn't let others weaponize his empathy anymore. Instead of feeling guilty for choosing peace, he sees it as self-respect. That shift may unsettle those who once relied on his people-pleasing nature, but it's a necessary evolution. Validation seeking becomes irrelevant. He no longer needs applause or external approval to feel worthy. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization sits at the top. This is where the Sigma now operates. His sense of identity is internal, not defined by others. And perhaps the most important shift, he's now mission-driven. Everything he does is intentional, whether it's building a business, improving himself, or simply enjoying solitude. He's laser-focused. He's not avoiding emotions, he's just prioritizing purpose. This detachment makes him powerful and a bit unsettling. People sense the change. The once agreeable Sigma is now cool, measured, and unshakable. He's no longer a safety net for others' dysfunction. He's not cruel, just clear. And clarity, that's scary for those who can't control it. So when a Sigma male is done playing nice, it's not a declaration of war, it's a quiet revolution. He didn't become heartless, he became free. Point 8. The world finally takes notice. When a Sigma male is done playing nice, something profound happens. He becomes untouchable. Not in the sense of arrogance or superiority, but in a way that reflects deep clarity and emotional mastery. This transformation is rooted in psychology, stoicism, and lived experience. Let's break it down. First, understand that Sigma males are lone wolves, independent thinkers who don't crave social approval, but even they can be pushed too far. When that threshold is crossed, a mental switch flips. The Sigma detaches, not out of bitterness, but out of necessity. He's done explaining himself, done tolerating manipulation, done entertaining emotional chaos. Manipulation tactics, whether it's gaslighting, guilt-tripping, or passive aggressiveness, lose their power over him. Why? Because he no longer reacts. Reaction is fuel for manipulation, and he's pulled the plug. This is supported by the concept of emotional detachment in psychology, a skill often taught in therapy to help individuals maintain boundaries and reduce emotional burnout. The Sigma embodies this skill naturally. Guilt trips? Denied. He doesn't let others weaponize his empathy anymore. Instead of feeling guilty for choosing peace, he sees it as self-respect. That shift may unsettle those who once relied on his people-pleasing nature, but it's a necessary evolution. Validation seeking becomes irrelevant. He no longer needs applause or external approval to feel worthy. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization sits at the top. This is where the Sigma now operates. His sense of identity is internal, not defined by others. And perhaps the most important shift, he's now mission-driven. Everything he does is intentional. Whether it's building a business, improving himself, or simply enjoying solitude, he's laser-focused. He's not avoiding emotions, he's just prioritizing purpose. This detachment makes him powerful and a bit unsettling. People sense the change. The once agreeable Sigma is now cool, measured, and unshakable. He's no longer a safety net for others' dysfunction. He's not cruel, just clear. And clarity, that's scary for those who can't control it. So when a Sigma male is done playing nice, it's not a declaration of war, it's a quiet revolution. He didn't become heartless. He became free. Being nice is a choice, but so is walking away. And when a Sigma finally chooses to protect his peace over pleasing others, he unlocks a level of power most people never touch. So if you're a Sigma watching this, stop apologizing for evolving. Stop explaining your silence. Stop watering down your worth. Your power lies in your discipline, your detachment, and your decision to never settle. Because when you're done playing nice, you start playing real. And that's when everything changes. Sigmas, this is your reminder to own your journey. If this video spoke to your soul, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to join a community of thinkers, lone wolves, and leaders who don't just exist, they impact. Apply these Sigma traits to your life and watch the world adjust to your new frequency. Stay true and stay Sigma. He doesn't chase, he doesn't explain, he simply sets the boundary and watches what crosses it. In a hyper-connected world obsessed with attention and approval, the Sigma male is an enigma. You won't find him posting thirst traps or obsessing over replies. He operates in silence, moves with intention, and holds an internal compass that doesn't sway with trends or validation. This is precisely what makes him magnetic. Psychologically, boundaries are a form of self-respect, and the Sigma male has mastered this art. He doesn't set boundaries to manipulate, he sets them to protect his peace. Modern psychology supports that clear personal boundaries promote mental well-being, emotional independence, and healthy relationships. The Sigma male doesn't just understand this, he embodies it. When he withdraws, it's not a power play, it's a calibration of energy. He knows his value and doesn't hand it out like flyers on a street corner. This restraint, this rare blend of emotional discipline and mystery, creates a gravitational pull. Women feel it, not because he overwhelms them with attention, but because he doesn't. In an age where oversharing is the norm, his quiet control feels like an oasis. He's not cold, he's composed. He's not detached, he's deliberate. And the moment someone tries to cross a line, whether it's disrespect, manipulation, or chaos, he doesn't react with drama. He simply exits. That's power. Not the kind you flaunt, but the kind you feel. His boundaries are not walls to keep others out, but filters to let the right people in. And that subtle distinction is everything. Women don't chase Sigma males because they're emotionally unavailable. They're drawn to them because they're emotionally sovereign. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to disturb. In a noisy world, the Sigma male's silence speaks louder than 1,000 words. And once you've heard it, you never forget the sound. Boundary 1. Access is earned, not given. He doesn't respond to every call, every text, or every emotional plea for attention, and that silence, far from being a cold shoulder, speaks volumes. This isn't about arrogance or playing hard to get. It's about establishing psychological boundaries that communicate value. A Sigma male's time is guarded like a rare currency, and his energy isn't dispensed just because someone demands it. This kind of restraint sends a powerful, often subconscious message to a woman. In psychology, this ties closely with the scarcity principle, a cognitive bias where we tend to assign more value to things that are less available. When he doesn't instantly respond or react, it doesn't convey disinterest. It builds mystery and raises his perceived worth. Women instinctively pick up on this. His absence creates space for desire to grow and for curiosity to intensify. She begins to wonder what he's doing, who he's with, and why he's not instantly available like others might be. and in that wondering attraction brews. Evolutionary psychology also plays a role here. Throughout history, individuals who exuded self-sufficiency and control have been viewed as high status, traits that signal strength, stability, and security. By not making her the center of his universe, he's subtly showing that he doesn't hurt her to feel complete. And paradoxically, that independence makes her want to be a part of his world even more. It's a dynamic that reverses the chase. Instead of begging for attention, he sets the tone, and she leans in. His presence becomes something to earn, not assume, and that shift is magnetic. In a world addicted to instant responses and constant digital noise, the Sigma male's restraint is like a breath of fresh air, cool, controlled, and unmistakably attractive. His silence is not absence, it's a boundary, and boundaries, when held with confidence, don't repel, they captivate. Boundary 2, he doesn't enter emotional chaos. Drama, manipulation, and emotional roller coasters, these are the weapons often used in the battlefield of emotional control. But the Sigma male doesn't engage. He sees them clearly, names them for what they are, and steps around them like a man walking through a minefield, careful not to trigger an explosion. Unlike most men who might take the bait and get drawn into endless debates, toxic confrontations, or gaslighting spirals, the Sigma operates on an entirely different frequency. His response is not rage, retaliation, or justification. It's absence. His boundary is not enforced through shouting or ultimatums. It's enforced through silence. This is not avoidance. It's strategic disengagement. Psychology calls this a gray rock technique, used by emotionally intelligent individuals to remain unreactive in the face of manipulation. When someone thrives on attention and chaos, the most effective weapon against them is indifference. The Sigma knows this instinctively. His silence is louder than words. It creates space for truth to echo. His absence is not a retreat, it is a statement, one that says, "Wait, I do not entertain dysfunction." For women accustomed to reactive partners, this silence is deafening. It confronts them with their own behavior. It removes the drama supply chain. And in that vacuum, the Sigma's exit stings more than any heated argument ever could. Neuroscience backs this up. When emotional stimuli are removed abruptly, the brain experiences a kind of withdrawal. It's not the closure she expected, it's the mirror she never wanted to look into. The Sigma male doesn't burn bridges. He simply crosses them quietly, with dignity, and doesn't look back. His absence becomes presence. His silence becomes a message. And in that moment, she doesn't just lose the argument, she loses access. That's what makes the Sigma's boundaries so powerful. They're not written in words, but in actions, not declared, but demonstrated, and once they're enforced, they leave no room for negotiation. Boundary 3, he does not abandon his mission. She might want more time, more commitment, more compromise. But the Sigma male operates on a different frequency, one that prioritizes purpose over pleasure and mission over momentary desire. This isn't about arrogance or emotional detachment, it's about living in alignment with one's inner compass. The Sigma male is deeply focused on his goals, whether they involve building a business, mastering a craft, or transforming his body and mind. Psychology backs this up. Studies in evolutionary biology show that women are often attracted to men with clear ambition and purpose. It signals stability, leadership, and confidence, qualities that hint at long-term survivability and success. When a man is unshakably focused, it creates a gravitational pull that doesn't just command attention, it earns respect. A Sigma doesn't ask for validation. His discipline speaks for itself. And in a world full of men eager to please, his refusal to compromise on his path sets him apart. This doesn't mean he lacks the ability to love or commit, but his boundaries are firm. He will not water himself down to fit into a relationship that doesn't respect his drive. In fact, his restraint is what makes him magnetic. Women may initially feel frustrated by his emotional distance or the way he disappears into his passions, but deep down, many admire the unwavering vision. They might not admit it openly, but it's that very discipline that separates him from the crowd. He becomes more than just a man. He becomes a force of nature. Like a mountain that doesn't move for storms, he remains rooted in purpose. And because he does not chase, he is often the one being pursued. That doesn't make him heartless, it makes him rare. In a society where people often sacrifice their dreams to maintain comfort, the Sigma male is a reminder that greatness demands solitude, focus, and sometimes even loss. His path isn't easy. It's filled with long nights, isolation, and choices others won't understand. But he knows. A man who abandons his mission for momentary affection will eventually lose both. So while she may ask for more of him, he remains committed first to the fire inside him. And ironically, it's that very commitment that draws others to his flame. Boundary 4, he refuses to be defined by her expectations. He won't become what she fantasizes. He won't act out a role. He shows up as he is, unfiltered, unapologetic. And that self-possession is intoxicating. What makes this so magnetic is the way it defies a deeply ingrained social pattern. In modern relationships, especially in the age of social media and hyper-personal branding, many people subconsciously perform. They mold themselves into idealized versions, curated for approval, validation, or admiration. But a Sigma male refuses to play that game. He doesn't twist himself into her fantasy or rewrite his personality to gain favor. His identity is not a script to be edited for someone else's expectations. Psychology refers to this as authenticity, a trait that's been linked to higher emotional intelligence, confidence, and even greater relationship satisfaction. And ironically, it's this refusal to conform that becomes so captivating. Why? Because humans are drawn to mystery and confidence. When a man doesn't seek approval, he communicates that his worth is innate, not dependent on outside affirmation. This creates a paradoxical effect. The more indifferent he is to impressing her, the more intriguing he becomes. It's what psychologists call the scarcity principle. People value what seems rare, and authenticity in today's world is rare. When she realizes she can't control the narrative, when he doesn't bend to her expectations, doesn't chase, doesn't over-explain or over-apologize, she begins to feel the gravitational pull of his grounded presence. It challenges her, maybe even frustrates her, but it also fascinates her. She may test him, try to provoke an emotional performance, or attempt to draw out reactions, but his centered calm remains. He doesn't retaliate or retreat. He simply exists with unshaken composure, like a mountain amid shifting winds, and that steadiness creates psychological safety, even in its unpredictability. She doesn't know what move he'll make next, but she knows he won't compromise who he is. This isn't arrogance, it's sovereignty. He belongs to himself first. That kind of man can't be manipulated with charm or controlled with flattery. And when a woman realizes she's dealing with someone who's not participating in the emotional economy of give to get, it disarms her. In a world obsessed with control, filters, and roles, the raw, unpolished truth of a man who refuses to pretend stands out like fire in the dark. He becomes unforgettable, not because he tried to be, but because he never tried at all. Boundary 5. He doesn't chase closure. If she pulls away, plays games, or tries to manipulate him by creating emotional distance, the Sigma male doesn't chase, complain, or fall into emotional traps. He simply watches in silence, offering no resistance to her departure. There's no pleading, no dramatic confrontation, and no desperate explanations, just a calm acceptance that radiates an unshakable self-respect. This response isn't born from indifference. It's a calculated understanding of value, boundaries, and emotional sovereignty. The Sigma male understands that love, to be genuine, must be freely given, not coerced or earned through emotional tug-of-war. And when someone begins to test those boundaries through manipulation or power games, his instinct is not to correct them, but to protect his peace. Women who are used to men chasing them when they play hard to get often find this lack of reaction jarring. They expect a pursuit, but instead, he offers them the unexpected, complete freedom to walk away. This disarming silence often becomes louder than any words could be. Psychology tells us that people often crave what they can't control, and the Sigma male's refusal to play along turns the table. In fact, this is rooted in the psychological principle of reactance, where people become more attracted to what seems unavailable or emotionally elusive. But the Sigma male isn't trying to be elusive. He simply lives by an inner code that says, if you don't value me, you don't get access to me. That kind of boundary setting is rare, especially in a world filled with validation-seeking behavior. It's not about arrogance, it's about emotional discipline and self-worth. His silence, his stillness, his willingness to let go with grace, it becomes haunting. Because long after the moment passes, she remembers it. She replays the way he didn't fight, didn't beg, and didn't plead. And that memory lingers. It challenges her idea of power in relationships. This is where many women realize he's not like the rest. He's different. He's not interested in winning someone who disrespects his energy. He doesn't fear loss, he fears self-betrayal, and when someone lives with that level of inner strength, they become unforgettable. Not because of what they said, but because of what they refuse to tolerate. Boundary 6. He keeps his world private. He doesn't share his next move. His ambitions, his routines, his internal life, it's not for everyone. He moves in silence, and that mystery is irresistible. A woman who tries to figure him out finds herself intrigued, invested, and chasing clarity she may never get. This isn't accidental, it's the natural result of a man who has mastered self-containment. In a world obsessed with broadcasting every thought, every meal, and every plan on social media, the Sigma male chooses silence. Not because he's hiding something, but because he knows that real power lies in unpredictability. Psychology calls this the appeal of the unknown. Studies have shown that uncertainty can increase attraction. When someone is hard to read, the brain fixates on trying to decode them, creating a loop of mental investment. This is why silence can often speak louder than word. For a Sigma male, silence is not passive, it's strategic. It allows him to observe, to listen, and to calculate while others reveal their hand too early. He knows that when you let people speak, they show you who they are. And when you stay quiet, they begin to project onto you, filling in the blanks with fascination, fear, or admiration. To women, this unreadable nature becomes intoxicating. They aren't handed a pre-written script of his life. Instead, they're handed a puzzle, one they feel compelled to solve. Yet no matter how close they get, the Sigma keeps something to himself. He's not emotionally unavailable. He's selectively available. His vulnerability isn't for public display, but for those rare few who earn his trust. This elevates his value, not because he plays games, but because he's not driven by validation. His focus is internal. He's working on things, building his future, refining his mind, pursuing a mission. And because he doesn't advertise it, his every move becomes more powerful, more intentional. Like a chess master planning 6 steps ahead, his quiet confidence makes others lean in. Women don't just want to know what he's doing, they want to know what he's thinking. And that's where the power lies. Mystery isn't about manipulation. It's about having something sacred within you that not everyone gets access to. That kind of man doesn't just attract attention, he commands it without even trying. Boundary 7. He demands respect, not worship. He doesn't need flattery or constant praise. Compliments don't move him, truth does. But make no mistake, he notices disrespect immediately and he has no interest in entertaining it. You won't see him argue, beg, or raise his voice. His power lies in his silence and his detachment. The moment a subtle jab is thrown, a manipulative comment is made, or a dose of passive aggression slips into the conversation, he doesn't emotionally react. He physically distances himself. This isn't avoidance, it's a deliberate recalibration. In psychology, this is often referred to as strategic withdrawal, a technique used by emotionally intelligent individuals who refuse to enable toxic behavior. Sigma males, by their very nature, understand the laws of social energy. They know that tolerating disrespect even once sets a precedent, so they draw a hard line. Respect is not negotiable. This immediate disengagement sends a silent but powerful message. It rewires the entire dynamic between him and the other person. Suddenly, the manipulator is disarmed, the game falls flat, and the balance of power shifts. This isn't about ego, it's about boundaries. Sociologists have observed that individuals who maintain strong personal boundaries are often more respected, even by those who initially try to test them. This is what makes Sigma males so different. They don't seek control over others, but they maintain complete control over themselves. That's intimidating to those who rely on emotional tactics to manipulate. He doesn't give warnings or second chances for low-key disrespect. His retreat is not a punishment, it's a statement. And when he steps back, others are forced to step up or step aside. In a world obsessed with validation and people-pleasing, his refusal to compromise self-respect is revolutionary. It teaches people without a word that access to his presence is a privilege, not a right. And that privilege can be revoked the moment someone believes respect is optional. So, if you ever wonder why he suddenly goes quiet or disappears, it's not confusion, it's clarity. He's already made a decision. Boundary 8, he will walk alone without hesitation. If the relationship starts to cost him his peace, identity, or direction, he leaves. No announcement, no meltdown, just distance. Because the Sigma male understands something most people overlook. Peace is not a luxury, it's a non-negotiable. He knows that once a relationship begins to compromise his inner stability, it's no longer love, it's emotional debt. There's no dramatic exit, no need to explain. He simply reclaims his solitude like a warrior returning to sacred ground. Psychology backs this up. Men who are secure in solitude tend to have stronger self-concepts and healthier boundaries. The Sigma thrives alone, not because he's antisocial, but because he understands the power in detachment. When most are scrambling for validation, he's refueling in silence, and this makes him dangerously grounded. While others fear being alone and attach their worth to external relationships, the Sigma turns solitude into strength. This self-reliance makes him unforgettable. People may not understand his silence, but they'll never forget how it felt when he left. That distance? It's not coldness, it's clarity. And in that clarity, the Sigma male becomes more than just a man. He becomes a symbol of what it means to never compromise your core for temporary company. He isn't antisocial, he's social. An important distinction rooted in psychology. Sigma males aren't withdrawn or aloof because they dislike people. They simply value depth over noise. In social settings, the Sigma observes before acting, analyzing human behavior like a scientist watching patterns unfold. While alpha males dominate the spotlight and beta males seek approval, the Sigma walks an independent path, thriving in solitude but never isolated. His friendships are earned, not given, and his romantic interests are built on consistency, not charm. Neurologically, this selectiveness is tied to higher sensitivity in the brain's mirror neuron system. He picks up on subtle cues, making it easy for him to spot manipulation or performative behavior. When a Sigma disappears, it's rarely drama. It's data. A measured decision to protect his peace. This discipline is magnetic. Women remember him because of his silence, his standards, his calm detachment. The Sigma male doesn't chase. He attracts by becoming the rarest presence in the room. He transforms boundaries into an energy field, drawing in those who resonate with truth and pushing away the superficial. And while his path is quiet, its impact echoes. You don't forget a Sigma. You realized too late you were in the presence of power. He didn't yell, he didn't fight, he just walked away. And that's what terrified them the most. Not the noise of confrontation, but the silence of absolute self-control. A man who disappears without a word, yet leaves an impact louder than a scream. This is the invisible presence of the Sigma male. Unlike the alpha, who commands through charisma, or the beta, who seeks approval, the Sigma operates outside the social hierarchy altogether. He doesn't need to prove himself because his identity isn't tied to external validation. He exists on his own terms, and that alone disrupts the fragile dynamics of any room he enters or exits. People feel the shift, though they may not understand it. His energy is calm but potent, like still water hiding deep currents. He listens more than he speaks, and that unnerves those who rely on noise to feel important. Sigma males aren't antisocial, they're selectively social. They observe, they analyze, they listen to silence the way others chase applause. And it's this mysterious restraint that unsettles others, not aggression but ambiguity. In a world obsessed with broadcasting every thought and chasing constant attention, a man who simply becomes the loudest whisper in the room. Psychology studies even suggest that individuals who show emotional control, especially in high-pressure social situations, are perceived as more powerful and self-assured. The Sigma embodies this effortlessly. He's unpredictable, unreachable, and most of all, unbothered. His detachment isn't apathy, it's independence. He doesn't need them, he doesn't need anyone. And that quiet autonomy, it shakes people. Not because he's trying to dominate, but because he reminds them of their own dependence on others for identity. This isn't a story of dominance, it's a story of difference. A kind of difference that reflects back what others don't want to see. Their own insecurities. That's the true reason they fear the Sigma male. Not because of what he does, but because of what he doesn't need to do. Let's begin. Number 1, he's uncomfortably silent. Most people fear silence, not because it's empty, but because it is loud in a way that words are not. In silence, all the noise we use to distract ourselves fades, and what remains is truth. That's precisely why most people avoid it, but not the Sigma male. He thrives in silence. Unlike others who scramble to fill every pause with chatter, jokes, or nervous laughter, the Sigma rests calmly in the stillness. His presence doesn't demand attention, yet it commands it. While others interpret silence as awkward or uncomfortable, the Sigma sees it as a space where masks drop, pretenses unravel, and real identities are exposed. Scientifically, studies in psychology show that silence activates deeper brain processing, prompting introspection and emotional awareness. In the presence of a Sigma male's unwavering quiet, people unconsciously begin to hear the voices within themselves, their doubts, insecurities, and inconsistencies. This introspective discomfort isn't something they're used to, and that's why it unnerves them. When they see that he won't play their social games, won't scramble to validate them, or react to provocation, it exposes just how much they rely on others' reactions to feel in control. A Sigma's silence isn't passive, it's powerful. He watches, listens, and waits, all without revealing his hand. This forces others to reflect, often for the first time, on who they are without applause or performance. In a world obsessed with likes, noise, and instant responses, his refusal to engage in ego-driven interactions comes off as mysterious, even threatening. What's more, his calm and measured gaze makes people feel truly seen, not just the polished version they present, but the raw, unfiltered version they hide. And that is terrifying for most. Because to be seen is to be vulnerable. And in that vulnerability, people confront the truth they've long suppressed. The Sigma male doesn't have to expose them. They unravel themselves. It's not power through dominance, it's influence through presence. That silent presence, rich with psychological depth and unspoken insight, is the mirror many fear to face. Number 2, he operates with surgical detachment. The Sigma male doesn't panic, he assesses. In a world where people often react impulsively to chaos, betrayal, or emotional turmoil, the Sigma operates like a silent tactician. While others yell, flail, or spiral into panic, he watches, calculates, moves with precision. He's not heartless, he's strategic. Think of a sniper versus a foot soldier. The soldier runs into battle, reactive and exposed. The sniper waits, studies, then acts with one clean, deliberate shot. That's the Sigma's emotional approach. There's no wasted energy, no unnecessary drama, and no outbursts that cloud judgment. He knows that in emotional warfare, the one who stays calm holds the power. And that calm isn't accidental, it's trained. Studies in psychology show that people who develop high emotional intelligence, EQ, have greater control over their reactions, which leads to better decision-making and stronger leadership. The Sigma has, consciously or not, developed this trait through experience, solitude, and deep introspection. He's walked through emotional fire before and learned not to catch flame. To the average person who's still ruled by impulse or ego, this kind of composure feels eerie, even robotic. It's unsettling to witness someone who doesn't flinch when everything's falling apart. But that's because most people have never mastered their own emotional chaos. They project their internal instability onto others and feel threatened by someone who has what they lack: discipline. It's not that the Sigma doesn't feel, it's that he doesn't let feelings dictate his actions. Like a martial artist who breathes slowly in the middle of a fight, his strength lies in restraint, not aggression. And that kind of inner mastery, that ability to remain grounded in a storm, is both rare and powerful. It's why people often misread the Sigma's detachment as coldness, when in truth it's a high form of self-regulation. This isn't apathy, it's alignment. In a noisy, emotional world, the Sigma's silence roars. Number 3, he walks away with no explanation, no fight, no drama, just silence. One day he's there, calm, observant, seemingly connected. The next he's gone, vanishing like smoke before anyone realizes they were breathing it in. This sudden disappearance isn't accidental, it's deliberate. It's the classic exit of a Sigma male. Unlike other personality types who may yell, argue, or seek closure, the Sigma male disengages with surgical precision. And that silence, that's what shakes people to their core. It leaves no explanation, no apology, no breadcrumb trail to follow, just a haunting absence that echoes louder than words ever could. Psychologically, this reaction stems from a fundamental trait of the Sigma male: emotional detachment paired with high self-worth. Sigmas don't stick around where respect is lacking or their energy is drained. They observe quietly, analyze deeply, and when they recognize they are being used, underestimated, or merely tolerated, they leave. No announcement, no performance. This type of behavior isn't about cruelty, it's about clarity. According to studies on introverted personalities and self-reliant individuals, those who fall into the lone wolf or sigma category often value peace over validation and solitude over toxic connections. What really unsettles people is what this silence reveals. Suddenly, they're forced to confront uncomfortable truths. They were never the priority. They weren't appreciated, just accommodated. The Sigma male's silent exit acts like a mirror, reflecting the indifference they failed to see while he was still around. It's not that he stops caring, it's that he never pretended to care more than he did. People start to analyze every word, every look, hoping to extract a meaning that was never promised. But nothing comes, and that nothing becomes everything. What makes this departure sting even more is that Sigmas don't look back. They're not trying to teach anyone a lesson or win them over. Their silence isn't a tactic, it's a philosophy. They believe in preserving their energy, protecting their peace, and walking away when the cost of staying becomes too high. It's not cold-heartedness, it's emotional discipline. So when a Sigma disappears, it isn't just an exit, it's a revelation. And in the emptiness he leaves behind, others are finally forced to see the space they never truly filled. Number 4, he respects you, but won't fear you. People often mistake quietness for submission. Society is conditioned to think that the loudest voice in the room holds the most power, while the silent one is merely passive or timid. But this assumption collapses when it comes to the Sigma male. His silence isn't surrender, it's surveillance, it's strategic. While others are busy performing, he's observing. The Sigma sees what most overlook, the clenched jaw behind a fake smile, the hesitation in a handshake, and the sudden drop in someone's voice when they're hiding something. His brain is wired to read between the lines, decoding body language and micro-expressions that reveal people's true intentions. According to studies in psychology, over 90% of communication is nonverbal. That's where the Sigma thrives. He doesn't need to speak to assert power, he simply understands people too well to be fooled. So when manipulation enters the room, the Sigma doesn't shout or argue, he doesn't give the manipulator the satisfaction of a reaction. Instead, he detaches, swiftly, silently, and completely. This is where his power becomes truly unnerving. The manipulator who relies on emotional leverage and drama finds themselves without a handle to grab onto. There's no emotional outburst to exploit, no weakness to play off. The Sigma offers nothing but absence, no final confrontation, no second chances, just a vanishing act that stings deeper than words ever could. This leaves manipulators in a spiral. Their greatest weapon, control, no longer works. And without that, they're powerless. This cold disconnection triggers fear, because it reveals something terrifying. The Sigma cannot be controlled. He doesn't need validation, doesn't fear solitude, and certainly doesn't rely on toxic attachments to feel worthy. That kind of detachment is rare and dangerous to those who feed on emotional chaos. It's a psychological shutdown that's deeply unsettling to manipulators because it exposes their own fragility. And the silence, that's not retreat. It's a message. So the next time someone tries to play games with a Sigma, they won't hear a warning. They'll only notice the silence and the empty space where he used to be. Number 5, he never competes for attention. Alphas roar, betas beg, Sigmas vanish, and it's that vanishing act, not loud, not dramatic, but clean and precise, that pulls more attention than any showy display. In a world obsessed with being seen, heard, and validated, the Sigma male's quiet retreat isn't weakness. It's strength in its rarest form. Unlike the alpha, who asserts dominance through control, or the beta, who seeks acceptance through submission, the Sigma doesn't engage in the social hierarchy at all. He steps outside of it. He doesn't raise his voice, he raises his standards. He walks away from anything that compromises his peace, his values, or his independence. And when he does, something strange happens. People who once ignored him start seeking his attention. Those who underestimated him try to win his approval. His absence creates a void that people feel, but can't quite explain. Psychologists call this the scarcity principle. When something or someone is less available, they're perceived as more valuable. The Sigma male embodies this principle naturally. He doesn't need to play hard to get. He's hard to get because he's already complete within himself. He doesn't perform to be liked. He exists on his terms. And ironically, that quiet detachment becomes magnetic. while others post, boast, and overexpose themselves trying to prove their worth. The sigma stays silent, observing, refining, and evolving. This invisible power, this ability to disappear without fear, terrifies those who rely on constant validation. Because the sigma has never chased attention, and yet attention seems to chase him. His mystery makes people curious. His silence makes them listen harder. His independence makes them question their own need to belong. And in doing nothing, he shifts everything. It's not arrogance, it's not aloofness, it's discipline, it's self-knowledge. The sigma male moves like gravity, unseen but deeply felt. And while others exhaust themselves trying to shine, the sigma understands that the brightest stars are the ones farthest from the noise. Number 6, he grows in the shadows. While others post every gym session, every side hustle, and every ounce of ambition on social media, the sigma male builds in silence. He understands a fundamental truth. Real transformation doesn't need applause, it needs consistency. While the crowd seeks validation through likes and comments, he finds power in discipline, solitude, and mastery. Each day he chips away at his goals, refining skills, expanding his mindset, and developing discipline most people only talk about. You won't hear about his hustle on day one, you won't even see signs of progress for weeks or months, but then he's fluent in a new language, a task most abandon halfway. He's leading a complex project no one even knew he was preparing for. The man you overlooked is the one everyone wants to learn from. This stealth evolution isn't accidental, it's strategic. Neuroscience supports this approach. Studies show that announcing your goals prematurely can trick your brain into feeling you've already achieved them, reducing the drive to actually follow through. The sigma male bypasses that trap. He knows that real achievement is rooted in process, not performance. He doesn't seek permission to grow, and he doesn't crave praise for doing so. This unsettles others, especially those who've spent years about change but haven't moved an inch. His evolution exposes their stagnation. While they were busy debating plans, he was executing his. That quiet commitment makes him untouchable, not because he brags, but because he becomes undeniable. People fear what they cannot control or predict, and his rise, unannounced, uninvited, and unstoppable, breaks their illusion of superiority. There's something unnerving about someone who grows beyond your expectations without ever asking for your approval, and that's the power of the sigma male. He transforms in private, appears in public evolved, and walks away from mediocrity without looking back. His discipline is his declaration, his success is his statement. And to those still stuck in the loop of talk without action, his mere existence becomes a silent challenge: evolve or be left behind. Number 7, he's immune to shame. Call him weird, call him cold, call him anything you want. He won't flinch, because the sigma male has already done what most people never dare to do. He has faced himself. That long, hard stare in the mirror, he didn't blink. He confronted the darkness, the flaws, the regrets, and the scars he once tried to bury. While society trains men to suppress, to hide, and to pretend, the sigma chose solitude over performance. He embraced the discomfort of self-reflection. Psychologically speaking, this kind of radical self-acceptance is rare. According to Carl Jung, the shadow self, those unwanted traits and past mistakes, is something most people deny, projecting it onto others. But the sigma doesn't project, he integrates. He makes peace with the parts of himself that others are still ashamed of. That's why attempts to shame him or use his past as a weapon fall flat. He's not hiding skeletons in the closet, he's danced with them. And that unnerves people, because control relies on fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, and fear of being alone. But the sigma doesn't fear isolation. In fact, he thrives in it. Studies in behavioral psychology have shown that people who are comfortable with solitude tend to have stronger emotional regulation, higher self-awareness, and greater autonomy. These are not just character traits, they're superpowers in a world obsessed with conformity. So when someone tries to push him into a box, mold him, guilt-trip him, or manipulate him emotionally, it doesn't work. Why? Because you can't control a man who doesn't need your approval. That's what makes the sigma unpredictable and intimidating. He's detached, but not because he's numb, because he's disciplined. He's cold, but only to the nonsense. Weird? Sure, if thinking for yourself is weird. He walks away from drama without announcing it. He leaves toxic environments without a breakdown. And he rises from failure without fanfare. That quiet strength, that's what scares people. He doesn't need to be loud, flashy, or constantly seen to prove his worth. And because he has nothing to hide and nothing to prove, the world can throw its worst at him, and he'll still walk forward, unshaken, unmoved, and completely free. Number 8. He leaves a legacy, not a trail. The Sigma male isn't concerned with being remembered, but ironically, that's exactly why he is. He doesn't need applause or attention, nor does he hunger for recognition or titles. Unlike those who clamor for validation, the Sigma operates in silence, like a shadow with purpose. His movements are intentional. He doesn't broadcast his plans or trumpet his success. He lets his results do the talking. When he enters a room, he doesn't dominate it with volume, but with presence, a quiet energy that unsettles the insecure and inspires the observant. And when he leaves, it's as if something intangible has shifted. People talk about him more in his absence than they did in his presence, not because he forced them to notice, but because they couldn't help but feel him. Psychologically, this resonates with the concept of a phenomenon where those who observe more than they speak often become the most impactful. Research even shows that individuals who act with deliberate calmness and restraint are often perceived as more competent and mysterious, two traits that linger in people's minds long after they're gone. The Sigma male doesn't seek attention, but his discipline, boundaries, and ability to walk alone draw it anyway. In many ways, his detachment is his power. He can remove himself from environments that no longer serve him without bitterness, leaving behind not bitterness or drama, but curiosity, respect, and in some cases, obsession. He challenges the narrative that you have to be loud to be seen. Instead, he rewrites it with every step, showing that quiet confidence is the rarest and most magnetic force of all. That's why the Sigma is remembered, not because he demanded to be, but because his existence quietly demanded reflection. People don't just remember what he said, they remember how he made them feel, even when he said nothing at all. His impact echoes in their minds like footsteps in an empty hall, long after he's walked away. The Sigma male doesn't aim to frighten, he simply exists on his own terms. In a world that thrives on validation, applause, and endless noise, his quiet confidence becomes a disruption to the norm. He doesn't conform, chase trends, or beg for attention, and that non-conformity is what unsettles people the most. Society often rewards extroversion and compliance, but the Sigma male rejects the idea that he must play a part to be accepted. This isn't rebellion, it's authenticity. He values solitude over spectacle, depth over drama, and purpose over popularity. And because he's not trying to impress anyone, his presence is often more powerful than words. Psychologists say those who are least reactive often hold the most control. And Sigma males master this. Their silence speaks volumes. Invisibility becomes influence. So stay curious, be unseen, be unfazed, and in doing so, become unforgettable in a world that never saw you coming. He doesn't seek attention, he doesn't play by their rules, and yet they come for him relentlessly. Why? Because in a world that idolizes conformity, the Sigma male is the anomaly that can't be explained, predicted, or contained. His silence, it disrupts the noise. His solitude, it echoes louder than 1,000 voices. The Sigma doesn't reject society out of rebellion. He simply doesn't need it to define who he is. In biological terms, humans are wired for group behavior. From hunter-gatherer tribes to modern office cubicles, social cohesion has always been a survival tool. But evolution also birthed outliers. Those who walked alone, observed more than they spoke, and thought deeper than they reacted. These are the Sigmas. They don't compete for alpha dominance or beta acceptance. They exit the hierarchy altogether, and that exit isn't passive. It's powerful, because it reveals a truth many refuse to face. Much of what we call success is actually social theater. Sigma males tear down that stage by refusing to act. In psychological studies, individuals who exhibit high self-determination, those who live by internal values rather than external rewards, tend to unsettle hierarchical structures. Why? Because they're proof that fulfillment doesn't require applause. In corporate settings, the Sigma's refusal to play politics makes him appear threatening to those whose careers thrive on manipulation. In social settings, his calm demeanor is misread as arrogance by people addicted to validation. His stillness forces others to confront their own noise, and so he is labeled misunderstood, targeted, but not with open attacks, with subtler weapons, whispers, isolation, reputational sabotage. The world doesn't know what to do with a man who doesn't need it, so it tries to break him. But here's the catch: it can't. Because the Sigma doesn't draw strength from approval, he draws it from purpose. And when your compass is internal, no storm can reroute you. That's the essence of the Sigma male: quiet, unshaken, and untraceable. Not because he's hiding, but because he's free. And in a controlled world, nothing is more dangerous than a free man. Point 1. He can't be guilt-tripped. People often use guilt as a subtle form of manipulation to control others, especially those who have begun to break away from social norms or redefine their priorities. Phrases like, "Why don't you come out anymore?" or "You've changed" may seem harmless, even caring on the surface. But they're frequently rooted in an unspoken expectation. These questions are emotional hooks meant to reel someone back into old patterns of behavior. But guilt only has power over those who are still seeking validation, approval, or belonging. That's where the Sigma male stands apart. He isn't motivated by the need to be liked or accepted. His operating system runs on autonomy and internal truth. While most people crave connection to the point of self-abandonment, the Sigma male chooses integrity over inclusion. He values authenticity over appeasement and boundaries over blind bonding. When he withdraws, it's not out of malice, it's an act of preservation. He knows that time and energy are finite resources, and he's intentional with both. He doesn't owe anyone an explanation for his absence because his identity is not tied to anyone's expectations. And that unsettles people. Psychologically, this dynamic is tied to what social scientists call our tendency to interpret interactions based on relationship dynamics. When a Sigma male shifts or distances himself, others feel a loss of control in that dynamic, and they often react by trying to reassert emotional influence through guilt. But their efforts rarely succeed because the Sigma is already free from the psychological need to be managed by groupthink. That freedom is what gets him labeled as cold or heartless. It's not that he lacks emotion, it's that he doesn't let emotion dictate his decisions. In fact, this kind of emotional sovereignty is something many secretly envy. They may call him distant, but what they really feel is discomfort in the presence of someone who has mastered self-alignment, someone who cannot be guilt-tripped, manipulated, or emotionally coerced. And while society praises conformity masked as connection, the Sigma lives by a different code, one that protects his peace over popularity. He knows who he is. And ironically, it's that unwavering clarity that often draws people in, even as they pretend to push him away. Point 2. He sees through social masks. People often use guilt as a subtle weapon to control others, especially those who have started setting boundaries and walking a different path. You'll hear it in phrases like, "Why don't you come out anymore?" or "You've changed." On the surface, these words may seem like expressions of concern, but they often carry a manipulative undertone, a psychological push to make you feel responsible for someone else's discomfort. This tactic works best on those who are approval seekers, who crave validation, and who are deeply affected by the fear of disappointing others. But the Sigma male isn't built that way. He doesn't measure his worth by how many people he pleases. He's not interested in playing emotional chess with those who can't handle his detachment. He values truth over comfort, clarity over closeness, and purpose over people-pleasing. If he's absent, it's not an oversight, it's intentional. He doesn't explain himself because he doesn't owe anyone a justification for protecting his energy. That silence is his boundary. It's a declaration that he's not available for games or guilt trips. And because society is so conditioned to demand constant availability and emotional conformity, people find his self-containment threatening. They label him cold, arrogant, or heartless. But what they're really feeling is envy. Envy for the freedom he lives with, for the clarity he operates from. According to psychological studies, individuals who set firm boundaries tend to have higher self-esteem and better mental health. The Sigma doesn't isolate out of bitterness. He withdraws to preserve focus, peace, and authenticity. While others are entangled in emotional obligations, he moves through life with purpose and autonomy. This doesn't mean he lacks empathy or connection. It means he refuses to be emotionally manipulated into becoming someone he's not. In a world that thrives on distraction and demands emotional availability, the Sigma's discipline appears radical. But it's not cruelty, it's clarity. His distance isn't rejection, it's redirection. He's not avoiding people, he's choosing himself. And ironically, the more he does this, the more others are drawn to him. Not because he's chasing attention, but because he embodies what so many lack: freedom from guilt, freedom from approval, and the power to live by one's own design. Point 3. He disrupts group hierarchies. Every group, whether it's a corporate team, a school clique, a military unit, or a group of friends at a bar, naturally develops a hierarchy, a leader, followers, and the complex social glue that keeps the pecking order intact. People jostle for position through charm, dominance, loyalty, or influence, but then someone different shows up, the Sigma male. He doesn't play the game, not because he can't, but because he genuinely isn't interested. He doesn't want the crown, the applause, or the authority. That's precisely what makes him so disruptive. Unlike the alpha, who commands the spotlight, or the beta, who supports the alpha to gain approval, the Sigma exists outside this system. His power lies in his independence, and ironically, that makes others feel unsettled. You see, the human brain is wired to respond to social hierarchies. Studies in evolutionary psychology show that our ancestors survive better in structured tribes, so our modern minds still seek roles and status for a sense of security. When someone like the Sigma doesn't engage in this deeply embedded social contract, it exposes a truth that many aren't ready to face, that much of their confidence is rooted in how others see them. The Sigma doesn't need applause to validate his worth, and in doing so, he inadvertently becomes a mirror. That mirror reflects others' dependency on approval, hierarchy, and status, not by criticizing them, but simply by existing. And that's what creates tension. He doesn't outshine others by being louder or more dominant. He outshines them by being free from the need to impress, to lead, to be liked. That kind of neutrality is threatening in a world addicted to recognition. It's not aggression, it's detachment. And that detachment radiates an authenticity so rare that it challenges the very foundation of most social groups. The Sigma walks into the room and without lifting a finger, without playing anyone's game, he unsettles the entire order. Not because he wants to win, but because he doesn't care if there's a game at all. Point 4. Women can't box him in. He's not the nice guy who panders, constantly seeking approval or sacrificing his identity to make others comfortable. He's not the dominant alpha who needs to be in control of every room, posturing to prove power. Instead, he walks a quieter, more powerful path, the Sigma male. The man who doesn't beg for attention and doesn't demand submission. He's the mystery she can't decode, the paradox who's fully present yet emotionally elusive. What makes him so compelling isn't loud behavior or visible dominance. It's his aura of controlled independence. He's stable in his values, but free in his spirit. Unpredictable, not because he's erratic, but because he can't be manipulated or mapped like everyone else. That unpredictability creates tension, an emotional gravity few can resist. Psychology backs this up. Research in interpersonal attraction shows that uncertainty often increases fascination. When something or someone isn't easily defined, the human brain becomes obsessed with solving the puzzle. The Sigma male embodies this. He's not aloof to appear cool. He's selective because his time, energy, and peace are sacred. Some love that about him, drawn to his quiet confidence and self-mastery. Others feel unsettled, even threatened by the fact that he doesn't need validation or approval. But whether they admire him or misunderstand him, no one forgets him. Because while most men orbit around attention, reacting to what the world expects, the Sigma orbits around purpose. Purpose gives him direction, not applause. He's internally motivated, building his life around goals, visions, and values, not people's opinions. That's what makes him rare in a society addicted to image. He knows who he is, and doesn't ask for permission to be that man. He's the one she remembers years later, not because he played games or said the perfect words, but because he was unlike anyone else. When he enters a room, it's not noise that announces him, it's presence, a grounded, unshakable sense of self. In a world full of followers and controllers, he's something different, something real, something unforgettable. And that's why he never chases attention, because he knows attention always finds him. Point 5, he refuses to argue emotionally. People bait him, test him, try to spark a reaction, but he won't play their game. The Sigma male moves through social conflict like a chess grandmaster, measured, calm, and always 3 steps ahead. When others raise their voices, hoping to provoke him, his response is surgical. No raised voice, no emotional escalation, no ego-driven comeback. Just pure logic or deliberate silence. And that silence, it's not weakness, it's power. Research in psychology confirms that silence during conflict often shifts control to the quiet party, forcing the aggressor into a state of confusion or self-reflection. Emotionally reactive people can't stand this. They thrive on drama and feed off the chaos of emotional entanglements. When they don't get the reaction they crave, when their outburst meets a wall of calm, they unravel. Why? Because they expect others to respond the way they would. But the Sigma doesn't bend to social expectations. He's not wired to seek validation through conflict or dominance. Instead, he finds strength in mental clarity and inner discipline. His presence is disarming not because he's loud, but because he's unreadable. Neurologically speaking, people are hardwired to seek emotional feedback in social situations. When that feedback is absent, when the Sigma stares back with stillness, it triggers discomfort in those who lack emotional control. They interpret his neutrality as superiority or judgment, and it exposes their own insecurity. Meanwhile, the Sigma male isn't trying to win the interaction. He's simply conserving energy, choosing not to invest in petty battles. It's stoicism in action, a trait deeply rooted in ancient philosophy, where the wise were taught to master their emotions rather than be mastered by them. This kind of discipline isn't common in a world where everyone wants to be heard first, react fastest, and talk loudest. The Sigma flips the script. He listens more than he speaks. He thinks before he moves. And when he does speak, his words cut through noise like a scalpel, precise, purposeful, and impossible to ignore. This is what makes him dangerous to the emotionally chaotic. Not his anger, but his unshakable calm. He's not trying to outshine anyone. He's just not dimming his light to match theirs. Point 6. He's immune to trends. The Sigma doesn't flinch, not because he's arrogant or indifferent, but because his mindset is forged in solitude and self-mastery. In a world obsessed with trends, outrage, and constant validation, the Sigma male stands as a countercurrent. New challenge, new movement, viral opinion. While most rush to react, riposte, or rant, the Sigma remains still, not out of fear, but because his worth isn't measured by his participation in noise. He's not against the world. He's just unaffected by its theatrics. This psychological detachment comes from a place of deep introspection and autonomy. Studies in personality psychology link such traits to high levels of introverted intuition and emotional regulation, skills often honed through intentional solitude and internal focus. The Sigma's silence isn't passive, it's deliberate. He doesn't speak to be seen, he speaks when it matters. Unlike those driven by performative validation, the Sigma only contributes when his words carry weight. And because of that rarity, people listen when he does. His influence doesn't come from volume, but from value. In fact, research shows that those who speak less but with precision are perceived as more competent and intelligent, a phenomenon called the reservoir effect. When everyone else is shouting, trying to go viral, his silence becomes a paradox. It feels like thunder. It commands attention not through aggression, but by contrast. This paradox mirrors ancient Stoic philosophy, which values mastery over one's emotions and reactions. Like Marcus Aurelius, who ruled without seeking applause, the Sigma moves through life with an internal compass, not a need for approval. Entertainment may change, trends may fade, but the Sigma remains anchored. And in today's chaotic digital battlefield of opinions and outrage, that calm, focused energy is rare and powerful. His silence can provoke more thought than 1,000 viral rants. Because while the world shouts to be noticed, the Sigma simply acts, and in doing so he leaves a mark that's not just louder, but lasting. Point 7, he walks away fully. When he's done, he's done. No guilt, no games, no closure tours. That's the way of the Sigma male, and it unnerves people more than they care to admit. In a society where ghosting is normalized, but closure is still expected, the Sigma male breaks the mold with unapologetic finality. Most people leave cracks in the door, hoping for reconciliation, attention, or some emotional leverage. But the Sigma male, he closes the door, locks it, and tosses away the key without announcing the departure, not out of cruelty, but because he values peace over prolonged drama. Neuroscience backs this up. Studies on emotional regulation have shown that people who are more introspective and less socially dependent, traits often found in Sigma personalities, tend to recover faster from emotional turmoil when they cut ties decisively. The Sigma's detachment isn't emotional coldness, it's emotional efficiency. He doesn't burn bridges out of anger, he deletes the map because he has no intention of walking that route again. This rattles people because it denies them something they're used to. Emotional negotiation. They can't plead, manipulate, or linger in a loop of confusion. The Sigma leaves, and that silence becomes louder than any argument. This level of self-respect and boundary setting often gets misunderstood as arrogance or heartlessness. In reality, it's rooted in clarity. When something or someone no longer aligns with his values, vision, or energy, he exits, not to punish, but to protect. It's not about winning. It's about preserving his path. Society is conditioned to expect loops of dysfunction, breadcrumbing, and emotional gray zones. But the Sigma rewrites the script. His detachment is not an act of revenge, it's an act of evolution. And that's what shakes people to their core. Because deep down, many wish they had the strength to do the same, to walk away without making a scene, to disappear without guilt, to say nothing and still mean everything. Point 8. He creates, not competes. He doesn't measure success by beating others. He measures it by outgrowing himself. In a world obsessed with competition, comparison, and public validation, the Sigma male walks a different path. While others gauge their worth by outperforming peers, flashing their lifestyles on social media, or climbing the ladder faster than the next man, the Sigma male is locked into a more personal, internal mission, becoming better than who he was yesterday. This mindset is rooted in something deeper than ego, it's self-mastery. Psychologists describe this as intrinsic motivation, the drive that comes from within rather than from external rewards. Sigma males embody this. They don't care about applause, timelines, or trending metrics of success. While others broadcast their every move, chasing likes and recognition, the Sigma builds in silence. He's not interested in announcing every step of his progress, because he knows true strength doesn't need to speak. It simply becomes undeniable over time. When he arrives, when his plans finally bloom into visible success, it catches people off guard. Because he wasn't performing for an audience, he was preparing for a purpose. This element of quiet growth often baffles those used to loud ambition. Think of bamboo, which spends years growing underground before it suddenly shoots up feet within weeks. That's the Sigma's way, laying foundations others can't see until it's too late to catch up. Studies on high-performance individuals reveal that delayed gratification and low need for social approval are two critical traits of people who build enduring legacies. And that's exactly what the Sigma male is after. Not a flashy sprint, but a lifelong marathon rooted in discipline, clarity, and inner peace. His success isn't an explosion, it's an unveiling. And by the time the world notices, he's already miles ahead, not because he rushed, but because he refused to compete with noise and chose instead to align with his own growth. That's not just smart, it's rare, it's powerful, and it's very Sigma. They tried to shame him, provoke him, and isolate him, thinking they'd break him. But while the noise surrounded others, he found power in the silence. In the quiet, he built discipline. In the shadows, he sharpened his mind, and while the crowd scrambled for validation, he chased something rarer, truth. The Sigma male is not a product of popularity. He's forged through solitude. Unlike alpha types who thrive on leadership and control, or betas who seek group belonging, Sigmas stand apart. Psychological studies suggest that men with high introversion and self-direction often exhibit Sigma traits, thriving independently, resisting peer pressure, and focusing on internal growth. His strength isn't about overpowering others, but about staying aligned with his purpose. He doesn't seek fame, but his presence changes the room. His legacy isn't loud, but it lasts. In a world desperate for conformity, the Sigma chooses mastery over mimicry. Stay curious, stay Sigma. He remembers, not out of bitterness, but because precision demands it. The Sigma male operates with a rare level of clarity, one that doesn't rush to forget just because society tells him that's what healing looks like. Unlike the masses who forgive to feel better or to appease social norms, the Sigma understands that not every wound needs to be mended. In fact, some of them are meant to leave marks. These are not emotional trophies, but tactical reminders. You see, forgiveness has long been sold as a noble act, a moral high ground. But for the Sigma, forgiveness isn't always wise. It can be dangerous. In a world where apologies are handed out like coupons and second chances are manipulated for gain, forgiveness can become an open door for repeated offense. That's not healing, that's exposure. So the Sigma opts for something different: discernment. He doesn't react with rage, nor does he spend his energy plotting revenge. He simply withdraws, with intent, with standards. His silence isn't weakness, it's a reinforced boundary. Neuroscience backs this up. The brain encodes painful memories more vividly than neutral ones, precisely because it's trying to protect you from future harm. The Sigma uses this biological truth as psychological armor. His memory isn't emotional baggage, it's a data log. When he chooses not to forgive, it's not because he can't, it's because he won't let a past betrayal be smoothed over with artificial niceties. Closure to him is not a conversation. It's a decision made internally and enforced quietly. He doesn't need the last word, a dramatic confrontation, or even an apology. His exit is the message. This mindset doesn't make him cold, it makes him calculated. Selective remembrance is how he evolves, how he protects his peace and sustains his power. Because for the Sigma male, memory isn't a burden, it's strategy. And in his world, the quietest man in the room often has the sharpest mind. Number one, because forgiveness often breeds repetition. The Sigma observes cycles, patterns and loops that most people are blind to until the damage is already done. He watches people not just for who they are, but for what they repeat. In a world where most are emotionally impulsive, the Sigma male is strategically reflective. Forgiving someone too quickly in his mind isn't just an act of grace, it's an unguarded opening, a soft target. It's not that he's cold or cruel, rather he understands a crucial psychological truth. Humans are habitual creatures. Behavior that's rewarded, like being forgiven without consequence, is likely to be repeated. He knows this. That's why the Sigma sees pain not as something merely to be endured, but as raw, unfiltered information. Pain carries data. It reveals truth about others and about himself. It sharpens the mind and strengthens discernment. If someone stabs you once, it's betrayal. But if they stab you again after you've let them back in, it's no longer just their fault. It becomes your responsibility. In this sense, the Sigma doesn't forgive quickly, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. He doesn't dwell in hate. In fact, hate is inefficient. It consumes energy and clouds judgment, but he does remember, because remembrance is a weapon. Neuroscience backs this up. Emotional memories are deeply encoded in the brain to serve as survival mechanisms. When you burn your hand on a stove, you don't touch it again. The Sigma applies this same biological law to human behavior. He doesn't romanticize forgiveness as many do. He sees that while forgiveness can bring inner peace, it can also dull one's survival instinct if applied without discretion. The Sigma thrives because he doesn't ignore his instincts, he hones them. Instincts aren't just animal reflexes. They're the subconscious culmination of all your experiences, observations, and lessons. And in a world full of manipulation, false apologies, and repeat offenders, the Sigma's ability to remember, to recognize the cycle, and to act accordingly is not a flaw, it's his edge. Forgiveness has its place, but so does self-preservation. For the Sigma, it's not about revenge or resentment, it's about not being anyone's fool twice. Number two, because closure is a myth. Most people chase forgiveness like it's a treasure map to emotional closure. They believe that hearing "I'm sorry" or having that final heart-to-heart will finally bring them peace. But the Sigma male operates on an entirely different wavelength. He doesn't wait for apologies to sleep soundly, nor does he crave conversations to untangle the past. In fact, studies in emotional intelligence suggest that individuals with a high internal locus of control, like Sigma males, tend to rely on self-direction rather than external validation. For the Sigma, closure isn't something to be begged for, it's something to be created. He doesn't romanticize goodbyes or waste time decoding what went wrong in someone else's mind. Once he extracts the lesson, the emotional data, and the psychological insight, he files it away like a mission completed. The door is closed, not slammed, not locked, just respectfully shut. He knows that trying to get closure from others often reopens wounds rather than heals them. While others sit in emotional limbo waiting for peace talks, the Sigma already has his boots on, walking into his next chapter. Closure, in his eyes, is a luxury designed for those who fear solitude, who need shared understanding to move on. But the Sigma has mastered solitude. It's where he thrives, where he reflects, evolves, and sharpens his edge. There's no ceremony in his departure, no drawn-out goodbyes. His silence, the message. Psychologically speaking, this self-contained mindset is often associated with higher resilience and a deeper sense of identity. While society often encourages reconciliation and emotional processing with others, the Sigma processes inwardly, efficiently, and permanently. It's not coldness, but clarity. He doesn't carry grudges, he carries wisdom. Forgiveness for him is not an event, it's a quiet decision made in solitude, often without the other party ever knowing. He moves on, not because he's unaffected, but because he knows the true power lies in letting go without needing anything in return. That is the Sigma's closure. Clean, wordless, complete. Number 3, because forgiveness wastes energy, emotional processing, second-guessing, revisiting old wounds. These aren't just passing thoughts for the Sigma male, they're mental tolls with a measurable cost. You see, the Sigma operates like a strategist. Everything he does, every move he makes is filtered through a sharp internal calculus. Forgiveness for most people is seen as a noble act, an emotional release that leads to peace. But for the Sigma, it's not that simple. He understands that forgiving someone who has wronged him often requires reopening a wound, revisiting betrayal, and mentally rehearsing a narrative that drained him once before. It demands emotional labor, mental bandwidth that in his world is finite and sacred. According to neuroscience research, emotional processing consumes significant cognitive resources, particularly within the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision-making, emotional regulation, and planning. The Sigma doesn't ignore this. Instead, he reallocates. He views forgiveness not through the lens of moral obligation, but through the pragmatic lens of energetic investment. That energy, he reasons, could be better spent elsewhere, building, creating, evolving. He's not interested in looping emotional narratives. He's interested in forward momentum. This doesn't mean he's cruel or bitter. Quite the opposite. Cutting ties isn't an act of vengeance, it's an act of clarity. He walks away not because he holds a grudge, but because he understands the price of re-engaging. In the language of strategy, it's called opportunity cost, the loss of potential gain from other alternatives when one option is chosen. And when that option is emotional entanglement, he sees it as a liability. Studies in psychology have also shown that rumination, the act of mentally replaying negative events, can lead to increased stress, anxiety, and even depression. The Sigma knows this instinctively. He doesn't dwell, he detaches, he moves on. In a world that romanticizes emotional reconciliation, the Sigma carves out a different path, not one of coldness, but of self-preservation and high-level focus. He's not heartless, he's selective. And in choosing not to forgive, he's not being vindictive. He's simply choosing to invest his inner world in places where the return is growth, not grief. Number 4, because he's not trying to be understood. Forgiveness is often praised as a noble act, something associated with emotional maturity, spiritual growth, and being the so-called bigger person. In modern culture, it's seen as a sign of inner peace, a clean heart, or moral superiority. But for the Sigma male, forgiveness doesn't follow this well-beaten path. To him, it isn't a public performance or a chance to gain approval. He doesn't parade his emotional wounds on display just to receive applause for his healing process. He's not interested in looking wise, composed, or enlightened in front of others. The Sigma's world is internal, private, and governed by a strong code of self-respect. He draws boundaries not as a power play, but as a non-negotiable requirement for peace. And when someone crosses those lines, he doesn't scream, beg, or retaliate. He simply withdraws. Unlike others who may forgive for closure or to appear evolved, the Sigma male doesn't feel pressured to explain why he keeps his distance. According to studies in psychology, boundary enforcement is a core trait of emotionally autonomous individuals. And Sigma males often exhibit a heightened sense of self-differentiation, meaning they know where they end and others begin. So when he's hurt, he doesn't necessarily hold a grudge, but neither does he allow repeated access to his inner world. He may walk away without fireworks or speeches, and people often misread this as coldness. But it's not bitterness, it's precision. It's protecting what's sacred without seeking understanding or validation. Forgiveness, in his case, is not about letting someone off the hook. It's about choosing silence over conflict and peace over performance. The Sigma male would rather be misjudged and untouchable than understood and emotionally exposed, because to him invulnerability is not a weakness to overcome, it's a fortress of wisdom built from experience. And so while the world debates what it means to forgive and forget, the Sigma quietly remembers. Not to stay angry, but to stay sharp. In the end, his refusal to play by emotional social norms isn't an act of rebellion, it's a declaration of independence. He knows that not every wound needs to be healed with reconciliation. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in walking away and never looking back. Number 5. Because some lines can't be uncrossed. There are betrayals that don't heal, wounds not of the body but of the soul. Words once spoken, laced with deceit or cruelty, don't simply disappear into the ether. They echo in the mind, staining memories and rewriting the way a man sees the world. For the Sigma male, who already lives with calculated distance from the chaos of mainstream society, betrayal strikes differently. It doesn't just hurt, it recalibrates. Unlike others who may rush to forgive and forget, the Sigma male does not force himself into artificial amnesia. He doesn't pretend to erase what changed him. He accepts the fracture, studies it, learns from it, and rebuilds his life with that crack fully visible in the architecture of his soul. It becomes part of his emotional blueprint, not as a weakness, but as a warning. Psychologically, betrayal trauma can create long-term trust issues, according to studies in clinical psychology. When trust is broken, especially by those closest to us, it activates a survival response in the brain, often leading to avoidance, vigilance, and emotional detachment. These aren't flaws in Sigma behavior, they're adaptations. The Sigma male, already selective about who he lets in, becomes even more discerning. He doesn't live in bitterness, but in clarity. There is no return to what was, no illusion of going back to a time when innocence masked the truth, no second chance at first trust, and so no forgiveness, not in the traditional sense. That might sound harsh in a world addicted to positivity and second chances. But for the Sigma, forgiveness is not a performance for social approval. It's a decision tied to alignment and integrity. Forgiving someone who violated his inner code feels like betraying himself. So instead he honors the lesson, he remembers. Not to seek revenge, but to guard his peace. He doesn't carry hate, only awareness. In a society where people wear fake apologies like band-aids over self-interest, the Sigma male stands apart. He doesn't demand justice, but he never forgets the breach. And that cold, unwavering memory is what sets him free. Because in a world that moves on too fast, he moves deliberately, with eyes wide open and scars that tell stories no words ever could. Number 6, because forgiveness gives leverage. Apology is often seen as a noble gesture, a sign of remorse, a request to mend the damage. But to the Sigma male, it's more than that. It's a calculated chess move, a strategic maneuver meant to influence, reposition, or disarm. And forgiveness? That's the trap. That's the moment when the gates open, when boundaries blur, and when the one who once caused harm is given a second chance to do it again. The Sigma understands this psychological exchange with razor-sharp clarity. He knows that forgiving someone doesn't just mean letting go. In many cases, it means offering peace, emotional comfort, or even restored access to one's inner world. These are powerful currencies that Sigma males don't hand out lightly, especially not to those who betrayed or disrespected them. Unlike the alpha, who might confront or dominate, or the beta, who might submit or reconcile, the Sigma moves in silence and shadows. He sees beyond words and watches behavior. He's not swayed by tears, apologies, or elaborate justifications. Once trust is broken, the Sigma doesn't just patch things up for the sake of peace. He knows the cost of rebuilding is too high, and often the foundation has already crumbled. Psychology backs this mindset. Studies in emotional intelligence and boundary setting show that those who guard their inner peace and protect their emotional energy tend to experience greater long-term mental health. Sigma males embody this principle naturally. They've learned, often through painful lessons, that forgiveness extended too freely becomes a revolving door for manipulation. So when someone wrongs the Sigma and comes crawling back with an apology, it's not a cue for him to open his arms. It's a signal to assess, to evaluate intent, and most times to walk away. Forgiveness for the Sigma is not a gift, it's a guarded gate. He may move on, grow, and even release the resentment internally, but access, trust, connection, those stay locked. He keeps his enemies exactly where they belong, outside the circle, out of reach and out of relevance. Not out of hatred, but out of clarity. Because some bridges are better left burned, not for revenge, but for protection. Number 7, because revenge isn't necessary, distance is. Unlike the alpha, who often meets conflict with dominance or direct confrontation, the sigma male operates on an entirely different frequency, one of calculated detachment and quiet power. He doesn't seek retaliation. There are no emotional outbursts, no schemes to get back at someone. He doesn't waste time plotting returns or indulging in ego battles. His revenge, if you can even call it that, is his complete absence. A sigma doesn't react, he retracts. When betrayed, insulted, or disrespected, he doesn't engage in a war of words or try to prove a point. He simply pulls away, he disappears, and in doing so, he thrives. His silence is not passive, it is purposeful. Studies in psychology suggest that emotional detachment, when practiced with intention, can be a sign of high emotional intelligence and self-regulation. Sigma males master this skill. Rather than being drawn into the emotional chaos of others, they observe, assess, and then remove themselves from environments that don't serve their growth or peace. This kind of exit isn't fueled by bitterness, it's rooted in self-respect. And ironically, nothing unsettles an enemy or rival more than a man who no longer acknowledges their existence. It denies them the power they seek. Sociologically speaking, humans are wired to seek validation, even in conflict. When someone doesn't respond to provocation, it creates psychological discomfort in the aggressor. The sigma male understands this. His silence speaks volumes. His absence echoes louder than words ever could. He becomes a ghost, not just in the physical sense, but emotionally and mentally. While others are stuck replaying arguments or rehearsing comebacks, the sigma has already moved on, building his life, elevating his mind, and investing in pursuits that matter. This isn't escapism, it's evolution. His focus shifts from retribution to transformation, and that's what makes the sigma male not just different, but dangerously unforgettable. In a world addicted to attention and drama, the one who walks away without looking back is the one who leaves the deepest mark. Number 8, because he doesn't need redemption arcs. People love comeback stories. There's something undeniably compelling about the villain who changes his ways, the traitor who finds redemption, or the friend who finally realizes the depth of their betrayal and begs forgiveness. It feeds into our desire for closure, for happy endings, for transformation. But the sigma male doesn't buy into that emotional fantasy. He lives in the raw and often harsh truth of reality. While others may cling to the hope that people change or that time heals all wounds, the sigma understands that character is rarely altered by regret alone. Forgiveness to him is not automatic. It's earned through consistent action, not words. Psychology studies back this mindset, showing that while people change, long-term behavioral shifts are rare without serious introspection and effort. The sigma doesn't stake his peace of mind on that slim chance. If someone lies, betrays, or disrespects him, he takes that as data, not drama. He doesn't sit around waiting for a redemption arc that may never come. If you burn the bridge, he doesn't camp beside the ashes hoping you'll return with bricks and apologies. He moves forward, finds a better route, and builds something stronger elsewhere. Often alone, but never weaker. This isn't bitterness, it's clarity. The sigma male operates on a philosophy of self-reliance, not self-sacrifice. He understands that nostalgia can be a trap, and misplaced hope can be more damaging than the initial betrayal. His silence isn't cold-hearted, it's calculated. He knows that energy spent revisiting old wounds is energy stolen from new growth, and in a world where loyalty is often performative and apologies are sometimes manipulative, the sigma values actions over sentiment. He doesn't need grand gestures or emotional speeches, he needs proof, and until then he walks on, quietly, powerfully, and with zero interest in revisiting the ruins you left behind. That's not cruelty, that's wisdom earned from pain. While others romanticize reconciliation, the sigma male chooses liberation. His comeback story isn't about fixing the past, it's about mastering the present, forging ahead without the chains of betrayal dragging him down. And in doing so, he becomes the hero of his own narrative, not because he saved the villain, but because he saved himself. The sigma male isn't driven by bitterness or revenge, he's powered by strategy and emotional discipline. While others may preach forgiveness for inner peace, The sigma finds peace through control, by choosing silence over confrontation and detachment over drama. He doesn't harbor hatred. Instead, he remembers what hurt him and learns from it. He knows some betrayals aren't just emotional scars, they're lessons, warnings. Forgiveness to him is not weakness, but sometimes letting go without re-entry is the wiser move. His refusal to forgive isn't cruelty, it's clarity. Some bridges, once burned, are meant to stay ashes. Stay curious, be unseen, be unfazed, be unforgettable. He doesn't hate the world, he just doesn't understand why it keeps lying to itself. The Sigma male lives in a reality where authenticity is rare and social masks are the norm. Unlike alpha males who thrive in dominance hierarchies or betas who follow the crowd, Sigmas reject both roles and forge their own path. He doesn't scream for attention because he doesn't need validation from the outside world to feel worthy. Instead, he turns inward, finding strength in solitude and clarity in silence. His refusal to march in line isn't rebellion for rebellion's sake, it's a conscious choice to avoid a system that often rewards conformity over creativity and noise over depth. While others chase popularity, titles and shallow wins, the Sigma male questions the script. Why are people so eager to blend in when standing out reveals their truth? Why accept cultural programming that leads to burnout, fake friendships and hollow ambition? To him, society isn't a place to perform. It's a system to observe. He studies it like a puzzle, noticing the contradictions most ignore, smiling faces hiding sadness, loud voices lacking wisdom, and busy lives empty of purpose. Where others see success in constant motion, he sees distraction. Science even backs this mindset. Introverts and independent thinkers often score higher in creative problem solving and show increased activity in brain regions linked to deep thought and self-reflection. The Sigma male simply lives in this gear more often. He doesn't chase status because peace is his prize. He doesn't speak just to fill the silence. He waits until his words matter. And he doesn't crave attention because true power in his world is found in detachment. This isn't arrogance, it's discernment. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows the world is loud for a reason, to drown out truth. In this video, we'll explore the unique way the Sigma sees the world, not through the lens of superiority, but through a refusal to dance with illusions. Welcome to Brain Boosters, where we dive into the mind of a man who walks alone, not because he's lost, but because he knows exactly where he's going. Number 1, emotional overexposure. A Sigma male doesn't suppress emotion. He studies it, dissects it, and refines his relationship with it. While many in today's society feel compelled to broadcast every emotional wave as if it's a live event, the Sigma male takes a quieter, more deliberate route. He doesn't see the value in emotional outbursts or dramatic displays of vulnerability performed for digital applause. To him, emotional strength is not about how intensely you feel, but how intelligently you manage those feelings. In a world where overexposure is equated with authenticity, the Sigma male recognizes the flaw in this thinking. He views unfiltered expression as a form of emotional chaos, not courage. This isn't stoicism for the sake of appearance, it's emotional intelligence in action. According to psychologist Daniel Goleman, emotional regulation is one of the cornerstones of emotional intelligence, and it has been repeatedly linked to higher success rates in relationships, leadership, and overall well-being. The Sigma male embodies this principle. He doesn't lack emotion, he's simply not ruled by it. When others explode in anger or dissolve into tears for external validation, the Sigma quietly processes his experience, evaluates the meaning behind it, and allows himself to respond, not react. He isn't cold, he's calculating, not in a manipulative sense, but in a conscious one. Like a skilled archer who doesn't fire every arrow, he waits for the right moment, the right reason. Emotions are not his enemy, nor his master. They are instruments of understanding and depth. The performative vulnerability so popular in modern culture seems exhausting to him. Why should every heartbreak be narrated, every joy announced, every setback filmed? The Sigma doesn't perform his feelings, he refines them in solitude. His emotional world is intense, not in volume, but in depth. He prefers clarity over clamor and insight over impulse. While others may see this as emotional distance, it's actually emotional discipline. The Sigma male knows that true maturity isn't about emotional suppression, but emotional precision. He whispers to himself in a world that screams, and through that whisper, he hears the truth. That's his quiet superpower. He's not emotionally detached, he's emotionally deliberate. In a society that races to share every emotion in real time, the Sigma male slows down, listens inward, and speaks only when his emotions have something meaningful to say. He isn't avoiding emotion, he's mastering it, and in that mastery he finds peace. Number 2, blind loyalty to systems. Society runs on invisible scripts, silent codes of behavior that tell us what to want, who to be, and how to live. These scripts are so ingrained that most people never even realize they're following them. From childhood, we're taught to believe in a predictable formula. Go to school, get good grades, secure a job, climb the corporate ladder, buy a house, retire at 65, and then maybe enjoy what's left of life. It's a comforting narrative because it offers a roadmap, but comfort isn't always truth. Sigma males see through this illusion, not because they're rebels, but because it simply doesn't resonate with their inner compass. They aren't wired to blindly obey, they're wired to question. And when they look around and see that, according to a Gallup report, over 70% of employees are actively disengaged at work, it confirms their suspicion. This path, the so-called right way, doesn't work for everyone. A Sigma male doesn't hate structure, he just won't kneel to it unless it serves a real purpose. The 9-to-5 grind isn't inherently bad, it just feels soul-numbing when it's stripped of meaning. Sigmas value autonomy over acceptance, purpose over prestige. They can't understand why originality is often sacrificed at the altar of conformity. After all, history's greatest minds, Einstein, Da Vinci, Tesla, were not products of compliance, but of divergence. Steve Jobs dropped out of college and built Apple. Elon Musk sleeps in factories to innovate. These aren't mere anecdotes, they're testaments to a mindset that chooses impact over instruction, freedom over fear. And that's the Sigma blueprint, not to reject society, but to transcend it. To outsiders, this path looks lonely, uncertain, even dangerous. But for the Sigma, the real danger lies in spending decades playing it safe while passion and creativity atrophy. He's not impressed by corner offices or six-figure salaries if they come at the cost of his authenticity. He's not moved by applause if he had to wear a mask to earn it. Where others chase promotions, he chases purpose. Where others seek validation, he finds meaning in solitude. The Sigma doesn't just think outside the box, he lives outside of it. His life is a custom design, not a mass-produced template. While the world sticks to its scripts, he becomes the unscripted chapter, the one people remember not because he followed the rules, but because he had the courage to write his own. Number 3, shallow power games. Sigma males don't play to win popularity contests, and that alone baffles most people. In our society, success is often measured by how many people know your name, how loudly you can sell your brand, or how smoothly you can dominate a conversation. From corporate offices to friend circles to dating scenes, many people rely on charisma, social maneuvering, or status symbols to climb the social ladder. But the Sigma male operates on an entirely different wavelength. While others are busy jockeying for attention, he quietly observes from the sidelines, decoding social dynamics like a silent strategist. He sees the cliques forming, the egos inflating, and the status games unfolding, but he's not compelled to play along. It's not that he doesn't understand the game, he just finds it pointless. He doesn't crave applause, he values authenticity. Where others seek to impress, the Sigma seeks to understand. He's not in a race to outshine others because to him, greatness doesn't need an audience. In fact, studies in psychology have shown that individuals with high emotional intelligence often speak less and observe more. Traits commonly found in Sigma males. They're self-reliant, inwardly driven, and not threatened by solitude. The Sigma male respects genuine strength, but not the kind that's shouted through a megaphone. He prefers quiet power, the kind that doesn't demand validation. While others chase influence through visibility, he builds influence through integrity, discipline, and consistency. His presence alone can shift a room's energy, not by shouting, but by simply being centered and unshakable. That's why the Sigma male often confuses people. They can't figure out how someone can have such influence without seeking it. And this quiet, almost mysterious detachment makes him compelling. To the Sigma, the loudest man in the room is usually the most insecure, compensating for something internal. He, on the other hand, would rather lead through example, not persuasion. His power lies not in the volume of his voice, but in the weight of his character. And in a world addicted to noise, a man who leads in silence stands out more than anyone, screaming for the spotlight. Number 4, forced social rituals. Why pretend to care when you don't? That single question echoes endlessly in the mind of a Sigma male. In a world that often demands politeness over honesty and social rituals over genuine connection, the Sigma male sees through the performance. He doesn't hate people, far from it, but he struggles to understand the obsession with shallow engagement. Why are meaningless office parties, forced conversations, or obligatory weekend plans considered necessary? For him, these things aren't just exhausting, they're illusions of connection. Science even backs up the emotional toll of inauthenticity. Research in psychology shows that engaging in surface acting, pretending to feel emotions you don't, leads to emotional exhaustion and burnout. Sigma males avoid this emotional trap by choosing authenticity over approval. They value time like an investor values capital. Every minute spent must yield something meaningful. Growth, insight, laughter, or depth. Anything less is a bad trade. While extroverts may thrive on quantity of interaction, Sigmas seek quality. They aren't afraid of silence. In fact, they respect it, knowing that silence often speaks more honestly than words ever could. If the conversation doesn't feed the soul or spark the mind, they'd rather not speak at all. And when they walk away from shallow connections, they don't flinch or offer long explanations, because presence without meaning is simply absence in disguise. It's not about arrogance, it's about alignment. The Sigma male moves by a compass that points inward toward personal truth. And in a world addicted to performance and approval, his refusal to fake interest is not rudeness, it's rare integrity. While others may see his detachment as cold, it's actually clarity. He sees no value in pretending to care when the connection doesn't move him, and rather than wear a social mask, he'd rather be alone, honestly, quietly, and peacefully alone. And number 5, manipulative relationships. One thing Sigma males detect almost instantly is manipulation. It's like a sixth sense, an unspoken radar that picks up on emotional traps, passive-aggressive behavior, and subtle power plays. Whether it's a clingy friend who constantly guilts them, a partner who plays mind games, or a boss who thrives on control through intimidation. The Sigma sees through it almost immediately. His mind isn't clouded by the desire for approval or the need to belong. But what puzzles him isn't the manipulation itself, it's the fact that so many people stay in these toxic dynamics even when they know it's destroying them. He watches people ignore glaring red flags, excuse abusive behavior, and romanticize emotional pain, all to avoid being alone. It's something he simply can't relate to. You see, the Sigma male is fiercely independent by nature, operating outside the traditional social dominance hierarchies where alpha and beta roles dominate. Studies in psychology often show that people with high self-agency and self-awareness, traits common in Sigmas, are far less susceptible to emotional manipulation because they value autonomy over approval. While others might interpret emotional dependence as love or loyalty, the Sigma sees it for what it is: entrapment. He understands that staying in emotionally manipulative relationships out of fear of loneliness isn't a sign of love, it's a sign of self-neglect. To a Sigma, the cost of inner peace is non-negotiable. He doesn't bargain his sanity to avoid silence. He'd rather walk alone with clarity than march with a crowd into chaos. Being alone is not his weakness, it's his reset. It gives him the mental space to see people for who they are, not who they pretend to be. And that's why Sigma males rarely tolerate manipulation. They don't play emotional chess to earn affection or status. They withdraw, detach, and disappear the moment they sense they're being pulled into something fake or controlling. They've learned that freedom is priceless, and no amount of temporary comfort is worth a long-term soul wound. While others stay tangled in the web of emotional games, hoping it'll somehow get better, the Sigma walks away without flinching, because he knows peace isn't found in pleasing others. It's found in protecting your energy, choosing solitude over chaos, and never letting anyone write your emotional script. Number 6, worship of busyness. Hustle, grind, no sleep, repeat. It's the modern mantra of a world addicted to busyness, where burnout is worn like a badge of honor and productivity is measured in hours sacrificed. But to the Sigma male, this culture of constant motion isn't impressive, it's pure madness. He watches the chaos from a distance, not out of apathy, but out of clarity. Why would anyone celebrate exhaustion as though it's the price of greatness? Why has stillness, a moment to think, breathe, and reflect, been rebranded as laziness? The Sigma doesn't buy into the hype. He moves with purpose, not panic. His steps are calculated, his energy conserved like a precious resource, because he knows that rushing leads to ruin. Modern research backs him up. Studies from the World Health Organization have shown that overwork and chronic stress contribute to serious health risks, including heart disease, anxiety, and even premature death. In contrast, deliberate focus and mindful pacing, like that practiced by elite athletes and top-performing CEOs, yield far better long-term results. The Sigma doesn't try to do everything. He zeroes in on what truly matters. He understands the power of deep work, a concept popularized by productivity expert Cal Newport, which involves minimizing distractions and giving full attention to high-impact tasks. For the Sigma, time isn't something to kill or fill. It's sacred. He guards it fiercely, treating each hour as an investment, not a commodity. While the world brags about 16-hour days and sleepless nights, the Sigma sees through the illusion. He knows that success isn't found in doing more, but in doing better. And while others are sprinting toward burnout, trying to prove their value to a world that's never satisfied, the Sigma is building slowly, intentionally, something that will last. He doesn't need applause or recognition. His reward is in the results, measured not in likes or followers, but in impact, freedom, and peace. He chooses quality over quantity, clarity over chaos, and mastery over momentum. In a world addicted to speed, the Sigma thrives in silence. While others chase the spotlight, he carves out a legacy in the shadows. Number 7, fear of solitude. The final thing the Sigma male can't quite comprehend is why so many people fear their own company. It baffles him. He observes a world that is constantly running from itself, plugged into playlists, binging on shows, addicted to scrolling, clinging to constant company like a lifeline. People treat silence like a threat and loneliness like a disease. But for the Sigma male, silence is not empty, it's full of answers. He doesn't see solitude as something to escape. He sees it as a sacred space. Neuroscience even backs this up. Studies have shown that intentional solitude can boost creativity, enhance focus, and promote deeper emotional intelligence. In a world suffering from chronic distraction, the Sigma male's ability to be alone becomes his secret weapon. He understands that the mind needs silence the same way the body needs rest. In stillness, he sorts his thoughts, observes the world from a distance, and refines his inner compass. While others fear the void of being alone with themselves, he ventures into it willingly, almost eagerly. He doesn't just sit in the silence, he explores it, he reflects, he learns, he recalibrates. Solitude to him is not exile, it's elevation. It's where he fine-tunes his strategy, realigns with his purpose, and recharges his independence. Unlike extroverts who draw energy from social interaction, or even introverts who may prefer calm settings but still seek emotional connection, the Sigma